Let's get to the Trump tyranny tracker for today. It is what day is this? I should have it at my tip of my
It
finger.
is 1:35 yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So
today's actually 1:36, but
right.
we are recapping yesterday. So 1:35
Well,
recap.
it's 1:35 again. It's like a Groundhog Day. But this one is, there's a lot of news on Ukraine. We're going to deal with all the stuff at the top of the show because there's so much going on. Let's begin with this really unusual thing that for the first time since its creation, the U.S. Defense Secretary will not attend the Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting. Pete Hegseth won't appear in person or even virtually as over 50 nations gathered to coordinate military support for Ukraine. It's an unprecedented absence, and it signals a dramatic shift in America's role in coordinating the Western response to Russian aggression. So basically, America's out, so they're not playing this game anymore. It'll be up to Germany and France to handle this. This is a big miss.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect anything else from the U.S. at this moment. So, frankly, it's not surprising, and it's actually a good thing because at least they're not there stealing secrets and then handing it over to Russia. Right. So that's a positive. Pete Hegseth can go drink somewhere and do whatever he's busy with and be occupied with that.
He's having some trouble running the Pentagon at the moment. Anyhow, he's probably got other things he needs to deal with.
Yeah. And then whatever he learns, if he doesn't directly give it to Russia, he'll go on his Signal chat and start, chatting away on what weapons are being prepared for Russia. So, but it really just shows you, like, in a more serious note, it shows you, how far the U.S. has departed from its original stance of supporting democracy, supporting Ukraine, supporting NATO, Europe. And I mean, we're literally 4 months in, and this is where we are. And just to touch on it, Trump just had his monthly check-in with Putin about an hour ago.
Check-in with a boss. Oh, we lost you there. Something froze in your picture.
Basically, now I think I'm unfrozen. Right?
Yes, you are. You're back. I can hear you still. No, now you're frozen.
He had his...
Hey, go ahead.
It's the Kremlin gremlins. They don't want me talking.
Probably. I can see why.
So he had his check-in and he basically came out 2 things. One, he wants Russia's help with Iran, which is hilarious because Russia's the one who's solely helping Iran build its nuclear program. And I'm actually going to put out an article in a bit on that. And 2, he, came out with his big threat of, Putin is preparing an attack on Ukraine for what happened over the weekend. And I mean, it's just hilarious. I mean, if you ask me, it's tragic from a U.S. standpoint, but just, how he gets off this phone and comes out, oh my God, now we better be careful because Putin's preparing his attack on Ukraine.
Why is that a good reason for him to act in a more dramatic way? I mean, there are calls out there from Zelensky and others to say, this is the time to sanction Russia. And why is he not responding to this very threat by Russia? If Russia's threatening an even greater response to what they've already been doing, they've been, really aggressive in the last few weeks. If they're going to get even more aggressive, why isn't America standing up for the Ukrainians? And why is this bill that's still sitting in the Senate, languishing in the Senate? And, why is the American president not on the side of freedom, and democracy? This is outrageous.
We know why Trump is, because Trump works with the Russians and frankly has decades of ties. I think the more outrageous part is, and that should never, ever be forgotten because it's so easy to pin everything on Trump, that it's the Republicans. The Republicans could have put an end to this a long time ago. And even though, yes, they do have that bill in the Senate, I mean, if they came out, and really said, we are not furthering your policy until, you stop showing fealty to Russia, threatening to invade Greenland, attacking our NATO allies, nothing will change. And that's it. So,
this bill, which I know we said has got very little chance of passing, is actually an amazing bill. It's called the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025. 80 to 82 co-sponsors, which means basically a huge majority of the Senate. Democrats, Republicans, all have a huge interest in seeing this thing go through. Now, it's up to the Republican majority leader, John Thune, to actually do that. And even though he's indicated a high level of interest, he still hasn't moved this bill forward. And that's probably because the Trump White House is saying, don't do it. But, at this point, when we've got this aggressive re-attacking of Ukraine by Russia, why not put this to a vote anyhow? Just so every senator can get on the record about where they stand on Ukraine. So history can look back and judge them. Because history is going to look back and say, you stood on the wrong side of history if you voted against this bill. And yes, they'll judge Trump too. But I think this bill is popular. It's popular amongst the American people. It's popular amongst the majority of senators. Let's get this bill to the floor. I mean, they're not doing anything while they're trying to negotiate this other thing. Let's see if this bill can get through. And if the president wants to veto it, then he can veto it. But it'll be on his head and in his hands when the blood is spilt in Ukraine because of this continued aggression by Russia. So I think people should. I know you maybe don't agree with me on this one, but I think we should absolutely keep calling the senators, insist that this thing gets through. Zelensky wants more oil sanctions. Trump is in a capacity and has capacity to do that. We should keep pushing. We should keep pushing on this.
Yep, no, 100%. Call Senate and, put as much pressure as possible. Again, if Trump vetoes it, he vetoes it. But we're not expecting anything else. But at least put the pressure on. And to wrap up the news for Ukraine, Senate just confirmed Michael Duffey to oversee weapons procurement in the Pentagon. And Michael Duffey was notoriously known for participating in Trump's extortion of Ukraine in 2019 with that, phone call where he threatened an investigation be opened, a sham investigation for weapons, which Trump got impeached for. So, it just shows you where it is. And we have another Russia story coming
This needs to be
up.
underlined, though. It's Mike Duffey is not a friend of Ukraine. He's he's really probably a Russian asset in every way. He was the guy responsible for freezing the Ukraine military aid during the first term of Trump. Now he's the guy in charge of all the procurement and distribution of the aid going to Ukraine. This is a kind of sick, twisted appointment that the Trump White House is now playing games with Americans and America's bureaucracy by putting the worst person possible for any job that is open. And not only that, as you point out, there's another case I had this on Narrative yesterday about this other, I guess he's a disinformation guy. Maybe you'd call him an asset too, Darren Beattie, who Trump has appointed now to basically run the counteroffensive to Russia's disinformation agency. It's a really big job. It's super important. Turns out this guy is married to Yulia Kirilova, whose uncle has been thanked by Putin and held many Kremlin posts. We're talking about inner circle, Putin family member, extension. This is like, hey, uncle is in Putin's inner circle. And this guy is in charge of the anti-disinformation campaign against Russia. And what did he do on his first day at the job? He dismantled the whole thing. Yeah. This is not, this may be funny to somebody in the White House, look at putting all these, these crazy people in these positions, but it is murder.
No, and, this is part of Russia's, malign influence operations and how they infiltrate agencies, how they, infiltrate political parties, how they fund political parties, move their political, candidates that they want into power. And here you have yet another person who, by the way, served during Trump's first term, was fired for his ties to white supremacists. He is, clearly a Kremlin shell. If you look at the statements he's made over the past several years about Ukraine, about, disseminating Russian propaganda and disinformation. And here you have this guy who was put in place to, dismantle our defense against Russia's disinformation operations. While his wife, who I am more than positive is a honeypot that was sent to him because he literally just got married to her a few years ago, and Russia has a whole, we should do a special on that, a whole FSB department stemming from KGB of honeypots that they put out, in order to compromise people or to co-opt people. And his wife, long and behold, her uncle is, working in the Kremlin, worked in the Kremlin, knows Putin, apparently did something well enough, maybe, maybe getting his niece to marry
could be.
this guy, Beatty. Um, and thanked him. I mean, the whole thing is so absurd. I mean, it really is all dystopian.
It's dystopian, but it's also against the national interest of America. I mean, the president is allowed to do things. Obviously, he's the executive; he can change direction, but he can't change direction so fundamentally. Where you've got, it's like, okay, we're not going to have a military anymore because it's the equivalent of that, saying we don't care about defense anymore. Anyone can attack us. We don't care. We don't care. Because this is as much a weapon. Disinformation is as much a weapon as anything else.
Well,
if not even worse a weapon than anything else. To not have a defense against Russian disinformation is treasonous. It's malpractice. It's murder. It's the wrong thing for America to not have a reaction to our enemy's weapon of choice against us. And here we are, treating it like it's, it's just another thing we're putting an acting director or deputy director into who's going to do all this dirty work for Putin. We're giving Putin the keys to everything. And
he has everything. And don't forget, I mean, it's not only disinformation that, got dismantled, it's also cybersecurity that got dismantled. So frankly, Trump has done everything to weaken America. Everything to say we are open for attacks. Our national security right now is at the highest risk ever between his actions with, allowing Russia, Iran, and China to attack us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, what he's been doing with dismantling the terrorist task force, dismantling USAID, and now you have terrorist threats rising to the point people are sounding alarms that there might be an attack on U.S. soil.
Of course, there are no defenses around it.
Dismantling all of America's defenses everywhere.
So you've got this joke of a Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who won't even show up to a Ukraine meeting with all our allies because he's too busy running a crazy department that's falling apart around him. You've got the guy who's in charge of aid, who used to be the guy who used to kill all the aid. And now you've got this guy who's in charge of responding to disinformation, is completely destroyed the disinformation response and is married to a Kremlin insider.
And don't forget Ed Martin, who is in charge of, his weaponization. Department, who appeared over 200 times on Russian state television.
Yeah. And Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, who's a Russian asset, who's in charge of intelligence. So, it's got a whole...
And Elon Musk. I mean, we can keep going on. We should have a whole show on...
I mean, it is a spy. It's a spy cell. It's a spy network. I mean, whether you like it or not, that's what it looks like. They're all assets. They're all working together. They're all coordinating their efforts to basically, further Russia's aims and completely leave America exposed. It's a very, very, people need to get a bit louder on this. And I know the MSM is not going to do this. We're not going to hear it from the mainstream media. People need to get calling. People need to express their concerns to their representatives. You need to write those petitions. You need to express everything you can, because this is, you might not get a response. Remember, you might not get a response, but at least
you have to push back.
And the record is so important. The record that you've done it is so important, which is why every single senator needs to get on the record right now and show America whether they support Ukraine or not. And if then the president wants to stand aside from 80% of America and say no, that's his thing. Let him do it. Let him justify it. But it shouldn't be the Senate doing the work for him.
I spent, I think, February, calling literally my congresswoman, every senator, even local New York officials, screaming why we have, big balls stealing our information, who again is tied to Russia. And I was like, do you understand? Americans do not want their information stolen by a guy who runs, cyber criminal attacks and Russian websites.
There's still a guy who works at Doge, the Crocus guy,
He's still there.
He's still there. His wife used to work for the fund that was basically funding a lot of the purchases by these oligarchs that had been sanctioned.
By the way, that fund is not really a fund. This is a front for SVR, which is Russia's foreign service.
Yeah, which owns a piece of SpaceX. Weirdly enough, speaking about this, Elizabeth Warren has just released a report detailing 130 acts of corruption by Elon Musk during his first 130 days in Trump's government. Of course, he was only allowed to be there 130, so he had a corrupt act every day. The report accuses him of using public power to enrich his companies, install loyalists, and dismantle oversight, essentially running a parallel government operation from within the administration. This guy is, how did he get away? I don't know. How did he get away with all this? It's crazy.
All I can say is yesterday I was so busy, between the lives and preparing for last night's Google Meets session and everything that I basically missed news during the day. And then finally at night, I sit down and look, and the top story is Elon Musk attacking this bill. And I was like, oh, this is fun. So I go on to Twitter to see, the divide between mega, because there's a big portion of them who support Elon, others who support Trump, and whatever. And then I start putting together the tracker, and I see Warren put out this report yesterday. And I said, holy shit, this guy probably, because this is what the Russians do constantly, probably put out this tweet attacking the bill and making that the main headline to distract from Warren's report, because that was a headline that got pushed down.
They do that all the time. They put out, I think that meeting last week with Donald Trump in the White House was actually meant to hide the fact that the New York Times, very, very late, but still managed to publish a story 7 weeks after you and I did about Palantir. It came out at the same time as that meeting.
Yes.
So that meeting, I think, was actually designed to take attention away from Palantir. Well, Americans have been had their data stolen by Doge, by Elon Musk. It's now maybe not even on American servers. It could be anywhere. He can run it remotely. And people are asking on the chat, why can't he be prosecuted? And no one is going to go after him in this administration.
But
maybe there's a civil suit that people can do. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even, pretending to be one. But if there are lawyers out there watching this, is there a way for us to have a class action lawsuit against Elon Musk for stealing our data? Because he really has. He really has. And put Palantir on there too, because this is what's going on.
And also I say, call Congress, but also always call your local officials, because frankly, the, state attorney general should be able to do something. And,
Good point.
Because every state has their own privacy laws. And
it's a really good idea.
Yeah, and combining the attorney generals together, they have the resources more than any of us to actually go and file these suits, to go launch investigations into what is happening with the data against their constituents in their state. So that's why I say call everyone, because when I called my local councilman, and he's like, why are you calling me about this? And he's like, you should talk to your congresswoman, Maliotakis, which I was like, trust me, I called all three offices numerous times. But I said, because I am your constituent, I'm a New York resident, I don't want my data stolen by Musk and, his operatives who are unvetted. We didn't even know their names. The only reason we found out their names is because of Wired and several other, media outlets who really pursued this. So I was like, you have to protect me under New York's, privacy laws. Yeah. And that's why I say you need to contact everyone from your local official. Be a pain in the ass.
Olga, you're brilliant something all the time, but this is a particularly brilliant idea of yours. If there are, various states can get together like they did with tobacco, like they did with other legislation, and they can sue Doge, and they can sue Palantir, and they can sue Elon Musk for invading their privacy, and no one asked me if they could use my social security number. No one asked you if they could use anything. Did anyone ask anybody? No. So
and
without
they
that,
can investigate criminally also to see what is happening.
And, let's bankrupt the guy, because, that is just ridiculous that this is going on. And Elizabeth Warren should be doing the same thing. So I don't know if there's a lawyer in the middle of all of these people that are watching today, but if there are, I don't know how you make these things happen, but hopefully someone picks up this idea and keeps it going, because I think it's really a tremendous one. Final story for today focuses on Trump's proposed rule letting the Office of Personnel Management fast track the firing of federal employees, giving agencies just 5 days to act once OPM flags misconduct. Now, misconduct can mean leaks. It can mean refusing to testify. It can mean really anything. It's be defined as misconduct. You disobey an order, whatever. This represents dramatic acceleration of the purge mechanism for career civil servants who might resist political pressure. We know what's going on. He's basically clearing out the entire administration and the bureaucracy. But this is ridiculous. 5 days.
5 days, and this comes with, everyone, if you want to apply for a job in the parks, you have to take a loyalty now test and write essays on how you will further Trump's agenda. This is like such Russian level bullshit where you have to actually, instead of listing your employment and, relevant information, now you have to say, how am I going to, further Thai leaders, extremist agenda.
And
so
you might be a
clean
landscape,
up parks.
artist, or someone who creates landscapes, and you've got to be, instead of talking about flowers, you're talking about policy. You've got to tell him why I'm going to plant these gardenias because, I love your policy on immigration. It's ridiculous. This is,
Or I'm going to have the park cleaned, 3 times a day because your extremist policies are so amazing. So you have the loyalty test, and at the same time, you have, our agencies with people who actually follow the law and have worked there, some for decades, and who are actually there based on merit, who are now, Trump is finding every single loophole to get them all out and then replace them with, a bunch of loyalists who will, do every single thing. And we've gone over on the tyranny tracker, everything from changing an intelligence report to suit Trump's needs, to prosecuting people illegally, to disappearing people illegally. This is the Russian government.
It's a criminal administration. Everything they're doing is criminal. They're just being corrupt, and they're doing everything they can to break the law at every step of the way. And it's clear. It's just clear that's what it is. And that's exactly like the Russian government. To your point, that's exactly what they do.
And someone just put a link. Letitia James is suing. Wonderful.
Okay, that's great. There you go. That's the Trump tyranny tracker for day 325. What is it? 135. I'm sorry, guys.
We're all tired.
Yes, I stayed up last night because I was reading the presentation because I couldn't transfer it, so it was a late night. So I apologize for that. Thank you for being here on the Trump tyranny tracker.
4:30. I was doing my tracker.
Oh my gosh. I don't, I'm not even, I'd say I'm surprised, but I have nights like that sometimes where I just it just doesn't stop until it stops. Thank you very much for being here on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 2 p.m., giving you the latest in the authoritarian creep in America. Olga Lautman can be found at trumptyrannytracker.substack.com or at unmaskingrussia.substack.com. You can find my work at narativ.org, narativ.org. We really appreciate your subscriptions, free or paid. And my final word.
And final word. I will get the details on the summer sessions out today. And don't make sure to tune in to Zefto in 31 minutes.
Dean Bledell and I counting down the top 5 stories of the day on the 5 stack in just 30 minutes. We'll hopefully see you there. Thanks for being here. Have a good day, Olga.
Bye-bye.